Samuel Dashiell Hammett was an American author of hard-boiled detective novels and short stories, a screenplay writer, and political activist. Among the enduring characters he created are Sam Spade, Nick and Nora Charles, and the Continental Op. In addition to the significant influence his novels and stories had on film, Hammett is now widely regarded as one of the finest mystery writers of all time, and was called, in his obituary in the New York Times, the Dean of the hard-boiled school of detective fiction. Time magazine included Hammett's 1929 novel Red Harvest on a list of the 100 best English-language novels published between 1923 and 2005. Early life: Hammett was born on a farm called ʻhæmət and Dain in St. Mary's County, in southern Maryland. His parents were Richard Thomas Hammett and Anne Bond Dashiell. His mother belonged to an old Maryland family whose name was anglicized from the French dəઃšiːl. Hammett was baptized a Catholic and grew up in Philadelphia and Baltimore. Sam, as he was known before he began writing, left school when he was 13 years old and held several jobs before working for the Pinkerton National Detective Agency. He served as an operative for the Pinkertons from 1915 to February 1922, with time off to serve in World War I. However, the agency's role in Union strike-breaking eventually disillusioned him. Hammett enlisted in the Army in 1918 and served in the Motor Ambulance Corps. However, he became ill with the Spanish flu and later contracted tuberculosis. He spent most of his time in the Army as a patient in Cushman Hospital, Tacoma, Washington. While there he met a nurse, Josephine Dolan, whom he later married. Marriage and family: Hammett and Dolan had two daughters, Mary Jane and Josephine. Shortly after the birth of their second child, health services nurses informed Dolan that due to Hammett's TB, she and the children should not live with him full-time. Dolan rented a home in San Francisco, where Hammett would visit on weekends. The marriage soon fell apart, but he continued to financially support his wife and daughters with the income he made from his writing. Career and personal life: Hammett became an alcoholic before working in advertising and, eventually, writing. His previous work at the detective agency provided him the inspiration for his writings. Hammett wrote most of his detective fiction during the period that he was living in San Francisco, and specific streets and locations in San Francisco are frequently mentioned in his stories. He was first published in 1922 in the magazine The Smart Set. Known for his authenticity and realism in his writing, Hammett drew on his experiences as a Pinkerton operative. As Hammett said, "All my characters were based on people I've known personally, or known about." Raymond Chandler, often considered Hammett's successor, summarized his accomplishments. Hammett was the ace performer. He is said to have lacked heart. Yet the story he himself thought the most of, The Glass Key, is the record of a man's devotion to a friend. He was spare, frugal, hard-boiled, but he did over and over again what only the best writers can ever do at all. He wrote scenes that seemed never to have been written before. Chandler, The Simple Art of Murder. From 1929 to 1930, Dashiell was romantically involved with Nora Martin, an author of short stories and several novels. He dedicated The Glass Key to her, and in turn, she dedicated her novel Lovers Should Marry to Hammett. In 1931, Hammett embarked on a 30-year affair with playwright Lillian Hellman. He wrote his final novel in 1934, and devoted much of the rest of his life to left-wing activism. He was a strong anti-fascist throughout the 1930s, and in 1937 he joined the Communist Party USA. He suspended his anti-fascist activities when, as a member of the League of American Writers, he served on its Keep America Out of War Committee in January 1940 during the period of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. The League again abruptly shifted its political position, resuming its anti-fascist stance, with the German invasion of the USSR in the summer of 1941. Service in World War II and post-war politics. In early 1942, following the attack on Pearl Harbor, Hammett again enlisted in the United States Army. He was a disabled veteran of World War I, a victim of tuberculosis, and a communist, but he pulled strings in order to be admitted. He served as a sergeant in the Aleutian Islands, where he edited an army newspaper. In 1943, while a member of the military, he had co-authored The Battle of the Aleutians with Corporal Robert Kolodny, under the direction of an infantry intelligence officer, Major Henry W. Hall. While located in the Aleutians, he fell victim to emphysema. After the war, Hammett returned to political activism, but he played that role with less fervor than before. He was elected president of the Civil Rights Congress on June 5, 1946 at a meeting held at the Hotel Diplomat in New York City, and devoted the largest portion of his working time to CRC activities. In 1946, a bail fund was created by the CRC to be used at the discretion of 3 trustees to gain the release of defendants arrested for political reasons. Those 3 trustees were Hammett, who was chairman, Robert W. Dunn, and Frederick Vanderbilt Field, millionaire communist supporter. On April 3, 1947, the CRC was identified as a Communist Front group on the Attorney General's list of subversive organizations, as directed by U.S. President Harry S. Truman's Executive Order 9835. Imprisonment and the blacklist. The CRC's bail fund gained national attention on November 4, 1949, when bail in the amount of $260,000 in negotiable government bonds was posted to free 11 men appealing their convictions under the Smith Act for criminal conspiracy to teach and advocate the overthrow of the United States government by force and violence. On July 2, 1951, their appeals exhausted, 4 of the convicted men fled rather than surrender themselves to federal agents and begin serving their sentences. The United States District Court for the Southern District of New York issued subpoenas to the trustees of the CRC bail fund in an attempt to learn the whereabouts of the fugitives. Hammett testified on July 9, 1951 in front of United States District Court Judge Sylvester Ryan, facing questioning by Irving Sapel, the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York, described by Time as the nation's #1 legal hunter of top communists. During the hearing, Hammett refused to provide the information the government wanted, specifically, the list of contributors to the bail fund, people who might be sympathetic enough to harbor the fugitives. Instead, on every question regarding the CRC or the bail fund, Hammett took the Fifth Amendment, refusing to even identify his signature or initials on CRC documents the government had subpoenaed. As soon as his testimony concluded, Hammett was found guilty of contempt of court. Hammett served time in a West Virginia federal penitentiary where, according to Lillian Hellman, he was assigned to cleaning toilets. Later years and death. During the 1950s he was investigated by Congress. He testified on March 26, 1953 before the House Committee on Un-American Activities about his own activities, but refused to cooperate with the committee and was blacklisted. A lifetime of heavy drinking and smoking worsened Hammett's tuberculosis contracted in World War I, and then, according to Hellman, jail had made a thin man thinner, a sick man sicker. I knew he would now always be sick. He may have meant to start a new literary life with the novel Tulip, but left it unfinished perhaps because he was just too ill to care, too worn out to listen to plans or read contracts. The fact of breathing, just breathing, took up all the days and nights. As the years of the 1950s wore on, Hellman says Hammett became a hermit, his decline evident in the clutter of his rented ugly little country cottage, where, signs of sickness were all around. Now the phonograph was unplayed, the typewriter untouched, the beloved foolish gadgets unopened in their packages. Hammett no longer could live alone and they both knew it, so the last 4 years of his life he spent with Hellman. Not all of that time was easy, and some of it very bad, she wrote, but, guessing death was not too far away, I would try for something to have afterwards. On January 10, 1961, Hammett died in New York City's Lenox Hill Hospital, of lung cancer, diagnosed just 2 months before. As a veteran of 2 world wars, he was buried at Arlington National Cemetery. Works, novels, all the novels except The Thin Man were originally serialized in 3, 4, or 5 parts in various magazines. Red Harvest, The Dain Curse, The Maltese Falcon, The Glass Key, The Thin Man, Short Fiction, The Barber and His Wife, 1922, The Parthian Shot, 1922, The Great Lovers, 1922, Immortality, 1922, The Road Home, 1922, The Mastermind, 1923, The Sardonic Star of Tom Doody, 1923, The Joke on the Eloise Maury, 1923, Holiday, 1923, The Crusader, 1923, The Green Elephant, 1923, The Dimple, 1923, Laughing Masks, 1923, Itchy, 1924, Esther Entertains. 1924, Another Perfect Crime, 1925, Bear Bulu, 1925, The Advertising Man Writes a Love Letter, 1926 €30, The Housedick, 1923-6, The Second Story Angel, 1923-6, The Man Who Killed Dan Odams, 1923-6, Night Shots, 1923-6, Afraid of a Gun, 1923-6, Zigzags of Treachery, 1923-6, 1 Hour, 1923-6, Death on Pine Street, 1923-6, Tom, Dick, or Harry. 1923-6, The Assistant Murderer, 1923-6, The Gatewood Caper, 1923, Nightmare Town, 1924, The Tenth Clue, 1924, The House in Turk Street, 1924, The Girl with the Silver Eyes, 1924, Dead Yellow Women, 1925, The Gutting of Cwfeignal, 1925, The Scorched Face, 1925, Corkscrew, 1925, The Host's Kid, 1925, Ruffian's Wife, 1925, The Main Death, 1927, The Big Knockover, 1927, $106,000 Blood Money. 1927, This King Business, 1928, Fly Paper, 1929, The Farewell Murder, 1930, A Man Called Spade, 1932, Too Many Have Lived, 1932, They Can Only Hang You Once, 1932, Two Sharp Knives, 1934, His Brother's Keeper, 1934, Nightshade, c. 1933, This Little Pig, c. 1934, A Man Called Thin, 1961, The First Thin Man, N.D. Collected Short Fiction, $106,000 Blood Money, a paperback digest that collects two connected op stories, The Big Knockover and $106,000 Blood Money. Blood Money, the hardcover edition of the bestseller mystery title. The Adventures of Sam Spade. Paperback digest that collects the 3 Spade stories and 4 others. This and the following 8 digest collections were compiled and edited by Fred Dain with Hammett's permission. All of these were reprinted as Dell Mapback paperbacks. The Continental Op paperback digest that collects 4 op stories. The Adventures of Sam Spade. The hardcover edition of the digest of the same title. This was the last time the digests were reprinted in hardcover. The Return of the Continental Op. Paperback digest that collects 5 further op stories. Hammett Homicides. Paperback digest that collects 6 stories, including 4 that feature the op. Dead Yellow Women. Paperback digest that collects 6 stories, including 4 that feature the op. Nightmare Town. Paperback digest that collects 4 stories, 2 of which feature the op. The Creeping Siamese. Paperback digest that collects 6 stories, 3 of which feature the op. Woman in the Dark. Paperback digest that collects 6 stories, including 3 that feature the op, and the 3-part novelette Woman in the Dark. A Man Named Thin. The last paperback digest collects 8 stories, including 1 op story. The Big Knockover. The Continental Op. Woman in the Dark. Nightmare Town. Lost Stories. Uncollected Stories, The Diamond Wager. On the Way. Screenplays, After the Thin Man, 1936, Shadow of the Thin Man, 1941, The Glass Key, 1942, Watch on the Rhine, 1943, Other publications, Creeps by Night. Chills and Thrills, Secret Agent X9 Book 1, Secret Agent X9 Book 2. The Battle of the Aleutians. Watch on the Rhine. Selected Letters of Dashiell Hammett 1921–1960, Return of the Thin Man, Unpublished Stories. In 2011, magazine editor Andrew Gulley found 15 previously unknown short stories by Dashiell Hammett in the archives of the Harry Ransom Center at the University of Texas in Austin. Legacy: Hammett's relationship with Lillian Hellman was portrayed in the film Julia. Jason Robards won an Oscar for his depiction of Hammett, and Jane Fonda was nominated for hers of Lillian Hellman. Hammett was portrayed semi-fictionally as the protagonist in the film Hammett. Published as Complete Novels ISBN 978-1-883011-67-3. Crime Stories and Other Writings ISBN 978-1-931082-00-6. References. Further reading, Bibliography, Mundell, E.H. A list of the original appearances of Dashiell Hammett's magazine work, 1968, The Kent State University, Ohio. Lehman, Richard. Dashiell Hammett, A Descriptive Bibliography, 1979, Pittsburgh Series in Bibliography, University of Pittsburgh Press. Lervisi, Gary. Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler, A Checklist and Bibliography of Their Paperback Appearances, 1994, Griffin Books. Biography reference, Nolan, William F. Dashiell Hammett, A Casebook, 1969, McNally and Lofin, Santa Barbara. Fiesheimer, David, editor. City of San Francisco, Dashiell Hammett issue, November 4, 1975, City Publishing, San Francisco. Braun, Martin. Prototype und der amerikanischen Kriminalzählung, die Roman und Kurzgeschichten Carol John Daly und Dashiell Hammett, 1977, Lang, Frankfurt. Lehman, Richard. Shadowman, The Life of Dashiell Hammett, 1981, Harcourt, Brace and Jovanovich, New York. Nolan, William F. Hammett, A Life at the Edge, 1983, Congdon and Weed, New York. Johnson, Diane. Dashiell Hammett, A Life, 1983, Random House, New York. Marling, William. Dashiell Hammett, 1983, Twain, New York. Simmons, Julian. Dashiell Hammett, 1985, Harcourt, Brace and Jovanovich, New York. Gregory, Cinder. Private Investigations, The Novels of Dashiell Hammett, 1985, Southern Illinois University Press. Christopher Metres, ed. The Critical Response to Dashiell Hammett, 1994, Greenwood Press, Westport, Connecticut. Marin, Maria José Alvarez. Claves para un enigma, La Poética del Misterio en la Narrativa de Dashiell Hammett, 1994, Universidad de León. Mellon, Joan. Hellman and Hammett, 1996, HarperCollins, New York. Bunett, Natalie. Dashiell Hammett, Parker's Done Over, 1997, Incridge edition, Amiens. Gale, Robert L. A. Dashiell Hammett Companion, 2000, Greenwood Press, Westport, Connecticut. Lehman, Richard. Literary Masters, Volume 3, Dashiell Hammett, 2000, Gale Group, Detroit. Hammett, Joe. Dashiell Hammett, A Daughter Remembers, 2001, Carolyn Graf Publishers. Panek, Leroy Ladd. Reading Early Hammett, A Critical Study of the Fiction Prior to the Maltese Falcon, 2004, McFarland, Jefferson, North Carolina. Lopez, Jesus Angel Gonzalez. La Narrativa Popular de Dashiell Hammett, Pulps, Scene, Y Comics, 2004, Biblioteca Harvey de Estudis Nordamericans, Universitat de Valencia. Lehman, Richard, guest editor. Clues, A Journal of Detection. Theme issue, Dashiell Hammett, Winter 2005, Hildreth Publications, Washington, D.C. Thompson, George J. Rhino. Hammett's Moral Vision, 2007, Vince Emery Productions, San Francisco. Heron, Don. The Dashiell Hammett Tour, 30th Anniversary Guidebook, 2009, Vince Emery Productions, San Francisco. Lillian Hellman's 3 volumes of memoir, An Unfinished Woman, Pentimento, and Scoundrel Time contain much Hammett-related material. External links, Dashiell Hammett bio and novels analyzed at deetnovel.com, Library of Congress lecture by Hammett estate trustee and biographer Richard Lehman on the 75th anniversary of the Maltese Falcon, checklist of where every Hammett story published, PBS American Masters Portrait of Hammett, Dashiell Hammett collection at the Harry Ransom Center at the University of Texas at Austin, The Case of Dashiell Hammett at the Internet Movie Database. Written and produced by Stephen Talbot. Winner of Peabody Award and a special Edgar Allan Poe Award from the Mystery Writers of America. Dashiell Hammett at the Internet Movie Database.